Welcome back. Tonight's show, we have a very special guest. I know I say that every interview. Um, again, I'm a bit of a fanboy. I'd like to introduce Jason Nedved. G'day, Jason. How are you, mate?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Good, thanks. Good. Thank you so much
Good.
for agreeing to do this.
Oh yeah, no problem at all.
I think a lot of the viewers will get a real big kick in listening to what you have to say.
Oh, it's done a couple interviews and it's what I'm learning is I do something completely different than everybody else and I don't know. It's just been different learning what I do versus what other people do and people think I'm a little crazy for it, but it's working.
Yes, it is. It seems to
Yep.
be.
Yep.
Um, Introduce yourself for those who don't know and just tell us a little bit about you.
So I'm Jason Nedved over here in South Dakota in the United States. I've been shooting 22. I've been shooting precision rifle for maybe 8 years, 9 years now. I didn't start out like most people. I didn't grow up shooting. I grew up shooting just a Ruger 10/22 in the backyard at a target that just flips over, and that was it. That's all I ever did. And then you got the hunting rifle out. Once a year, you shot 3 rounds, make sure it's sighted in, and then you shot your antelope or your deer at 100, 150 yards is all. So I got into this by a buddy, uh, was talking about it when we were ice fishing, and I said, "Well, that sounds cool. I've never shot that far in my life." And then you got to do it, for center fire, and then you got to shoot that far at 5 different targets in under 2 minutes. And sometimes it's 3 positions, 5 positions, and now it's getting to be 10 positions. And I'm like, holy cow, I've never shot over 200 yards. So I got into this and it was a slow start because back then there was only one match a month, maybe. So it was just a slower start between that starting 8, 9 years ago, whatever it was, and starting now, because now you have these shooters coming into this and they're placing at the top. They're not mid-pack shooters for 5 years like I was. There's classes to take, there's more science behind it. The technology is obviously better, the equipment is getting better. Back then we were wanting to use tripod rear, but tripods were 13, 1,400 bucks. So it
Yeah.
was just a little difficult. The barricades weren't stable. It was just a little completely different. If you had what you have now shooting back then, holy cow, you just dominated everything. But it's been a slow start, but I am really enjoying it, and the classes help, and getting out there and having matches almost every weekend is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Um, how was the Nationals for you? Run us through how was it? Were you confident going in? Did you have a good prep? You seem to dominate.
I seem to. Well, that's good because for me, I'm obviously going for Worlds, so I'm trying for that, and I had a score already put in for last year, so I went into it looking at that like, holy cow, I need to do well because I need to have a good score to place well to get into Worlds to be in the top six. So I was really nervous, not gonna lie. Then I think 5 days or so before we were about to leave, a week before we were going to leave, I looked at my score from last year because I thought I was in the top 12 or something, maybe. I don't know, top 20. And I looked, I was placed in 36th. And I'm like, well, I can beat that. So just all the stress was gone. And I was like, okay, all I got to do is show up and shoot, do the best I can. It's not a big deal. I just need to do better than 36 because I was already in like eighth place or something for the worlds or for our scores. So I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, I don't need to improve that much. I just need to be a little bit better than 36. So going into it, I was just stress free and I was able to win by 5 impacts, not having that stress. It was amazing. Even after day one, I went to bed at 8:30 yeah, in the afternoon at night. And yeah, I was just beat from travel and it just worked out. But for prep to get into it, I do a lot of dry fire, which I learned a lot of people don't do a lot of. Some people even have special ammo that they shoot. For me, it's all the same ammo. I'm running low right now. I got 3 bricks left, so we're going to try to see if I can stretch that out. But I just do a lot of dry fire. I'd probably dry fire 2 to 3 times per every live fire trigger
Yep.
press. So that's what I do. And even when I have students come over, giving away little trade secrets, is that's what we do is we just practice on a 1/4 inch target at 50 yards, just dry firing. You should be in that stable position that you're on your rifle and we pull that trigger and the little trigger press, you should still be on that target. So that's what I practice a lot of, is just at 50 yards at a 1/4 inch target. I try to get out every day for maybe 10 minutes and just practice on different barricades, different heights. I'm sure some of my YouTube videos, you guys see my props I have in the back. But that's just all I do is just change elevations and go, go, go. But when I say I train for 10 minutes of dry firing, I mean 10 solid minutes, not like a 2 minute stage or a 90-second stage. It is just 10 minutes of going to this position, this position, this position. I'll shoot maybe 2 rounds off it, or maybe 5, or maybe 10, and then I'll change positions and go again for a solid 10 minutes.
In the lead up to the Nationals, did anything change training wise, or you just stayed you stayed the
I got a
same?
new rifle. So I ordered a new rifle from Voodoo because I wanted to try a tuner, because everybody's, talking about the tuners, and well, I want to give my customers a good review or a good opinion on the equipment. And so I got a new Voodoo 24-inch Bartland barrel with a tuner on it, EC tuner V2. And I'm like, okay, I'd like to run this. Well, I had a match the weekend before, just a local small thing, no big deal. And I'm like, okay, I'll bring it there. I sighted it in and then just brought it to that match. That's it. And so I ran it there, and yeah, knew a lot of ammo and everything. And it's like, oh, I got a brick of this left. It's like, okay, let's run this. And so I brought it there, broke it in. It was doing really good. It was grouping well. It did really well at the long range. I got one of the high scores at that match. At the long range stuff, it was like 260 yards or something like that. I don't know, 300. So it shot that really well. I'm like, okay, maybe I will run this next weekend at the NRL Championship. So I won that match, and then well, it's doing well, and it's got another brick of ammo. So I got that tuned in my Kestrel, and I think he even made a video of it. I just stole a profile from my other rifle. And then, yeah, so I went into the NRL Championship with like 150 rounds, 160 rounds on that rifle.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it was, but like I said, the relief was all gone. It's like, all I gotta do is do better than 36. So yeah,
So I
it's
suppose
just,
essentially you took all the pressure off yourself.
yeah, yeah, like new rifle. It's like, oh, let's just see how it goes. And it went well.
Amazing. Well done.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I, I was lucky enough to be, we were away at a wedding, and I had the whole day off, and I got to watch the bulk of what the Shooter's Mindset put up. It was an
Yeah.
amazing weekend for me. It was really good to see.
Yeah. I hear they did a really good job. I had a buddy, also a local from home here. He said he watched all 2 days, all day.
Yeah,
And his
it
wife was
was
yelling at him, why
amazing.
don't you just go? You could have went and watched instead of sitting at home watching the whole time. So funny.
Yeah, it was amazing. They did a great job. They probably don't get enough praise for what they do. Those people.
Yep. Yep. Definitely.
I have a question here. Do you have a process? Do you have, I hear a lot of people explain a process. They stick to a routine. Have you read Lenny Basham's book?
I have not.
You're right. He talks about creating a process and staying true to the process. He talks about the only thing you can control on the day is your shooting, and where you land is where you land. Are
Yep.
you, do you have a set routine?
Yes. So like let's start from the beginning. Like you go up there, you shoot your stage. So as soon as I get off the stage, I reload my mag. You need to remember to reload my mag. Sometimes I'm bad at that, but as soon as I get off that stage, you get your rifle safe, all that. You sit down, you reload your mag, because I always have my stool with me, my little chair, my tripod set up low, and I just sit there. I'll reload my mag. Then after that, I will flip to the next stage and I will look at that. and I will start getting those ranges. I'll put them on my dope card, just the ranges, and then I'll put those ranges in my Kestrel, and then I'll just kind of leave it, read over the kind of the stage or the course of fire, making sure I wrote down the ranges in the correct order, because sometimes they write them near to far, but then the first position is far to near,
Yeah.
or it's in some weird order. So I make sure my order is correct.
Mm.
So then I erase it or whatever, and then rewrite it. So I'll just kind of read over that, and then kind of see what's going on with the squad. Anybody need any help or anything, like spotting if it's yourself ROing. But then we move over, and then Meg's loaded. I always check that again. Got the course of fire figured out. After the RO explains it, I make sure to pay attention because they've been there all day. That's what they do. Let them explain it, then I will rehearse it back to them. So you're saying it's 2 from here at this one, 2 from here, 2 from here, 2 from here at this target, and they confirm yes. Okay, perfect. I got it right in my head. So then I go back and I write that down, make sure my ranges are in the correct order again, and the ranges are correct. That's why I do it separate, write it on my dope card, looking at the matchbook, and then I'll look at my Kestrel from the matchbook, not my dope card. It's just a little process I do because I went to a match where I ended up screwing it up by 100 yards. I wrote down the wrong dope. Well, then I just went off my dope card and I was off 100 yards for a center fire match. And then I was like, I cannot find this round at all to save my life.
Right.
And I was, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock. It's like, where did this go?
Yeah.
And then go to find out, oh, I wrote down the wrong dope or wrote down the wrong yardage. So I write down on my dope card, put it in my Kestrel, and then I'll confirm all that, write it all down, get my dope, get the wind figured out. I'll look at my wind flag, everybody else's wind flag. And then some guys say what do they say? It's not like the pro squad or but like the pro squad, I guess we'll just call it for now. I can't think of the word.
God
But
Squad?
the what's that?
God Squad?
Yeah. So they say, oh, they have an advantage. Well, I think what it is and what I'm learning is we just talk more. We communicate to each other. Hey, what wind are you doing? Well, I'm thinking 330 at 6 mile per hour. Well, let's all do 330. So then the whole group does 330 at 6 to 8 or whatever, how many wind brackets. So it's just a communication thing. And then when you go up there, they ask, hey, what are you starting with? Well, I'm going to start with, I'm thinking 7/10. Everybody, yep, yep, yep. And then everybody's on their glass watching. They send that first round. Then you always ask before, because then they're not confused at which target you're talking about or what they did plus what they held over plus what they started with or whatever. No, you ask it at the beginning. Hey, what are you starting with? Oh, I'm starting with 7/10. Okay, yeah, that checks out. That's what I got. It's right between those wind brackets. Yep. And then they do their process of get, shooter ready, load and make ready, and then they go, and you're on glass watching. Where's that 7/10 going to line up? So it's just my tripod is my home base. I got my glass on there. I got my tripod caddy. I got all my dope cards. I got everything right there. So I can just sit there, glass, write down, and just gather information that whole time. That's why I think the NRL22 match went so well, is I was just able to focus on what I was doing, just on me. I didn't have to watch the other shooters. I didn't have to, hey, you got a 10. Hey, you got a 5. I wasn't watching what their scores were. I wasn't paying attention to how they were shooting it. It was just, I looked at it and like, for me, I know this is what's going to work best. For them, yeah, they use tripod or this. And I'm like, no, I think if I go here, it'll be fine. So it was just, I was able to stay in my own head, not worry about what everybody else was doing. So that was just part of that process, is just, I was right here,
Right.
nowhere else. Yeah.
Can you explain to everybody out there your gun, stock, scope setup, your rig setup?
Yeah, so I am running a Voodoo barreled action, obviously. Uh, I'm sponsored by them as well. I was always running a Voodoo, and then eventually, it's not, people are like, oh, it's get sponsors or whatever. No, it took like 3-4 years to be able to line them up, but it was to the point where this is what I like to run. And if they would like to sponsor me, great. I'd love, reach out and stuff too. But this is what I want to run. This is what I'm comfortable with. So I run the Voodoo barreled action, like I said, a 24-inch Bartland barrel, 120 straight taper because it needs to balance, and that one does have a tuner on it. I put that in an MDT JEE G4. I absolutely love that chassis. I have several of them now. Also sponsored by MDT. I was able to pick them up, and it works great because I love that chassis. You know,
Yeah,
again, I don't want to switch to something else just to get something, no, or get a discount on something. No, it's this is what I like. So I run the JEG4. I run the Arca 6 for it. I got internal weights for it, a barricade stop for it, but I really like the adjustability of that mag, of how you can go up and down and forward and back. So for the 22s, that's just perfect. You know, you can fine tune those mags and get almost anything to work in them. Then I use typically it's the Gray Ops rings. Really liking their rings because I can set my send it level on one side. I got the crush it timer up front. It's just I'm able to add stuff and it's not in the way of the way I hold my scope or my rings because I place my hand on top. And then I have the Trigger Tech Diamond. I use the flat shoe single stage. And of course, Vortex Razor Gen 3s on top. Absolutely love those glass. I've used other glass and I always revert back to the Vortex. And then I'm also sponsored by those guys, but it's so easy to be running those because I absolutely love them. I've ran more expensive scopes, I ran cheaper scopes, but that Gen 3 is just butter. I love the way the turret clicks. It's an audible and you can feel it.
yeah,
It's the 10 rev, you got the indicator, the reticle is great. I can see my rounds going through the air. So
yeah.
it's like this last weekend when I was talking to you, I was at another match and it was like, how'd you make that correction? Like, well, I seen it go 4/10 off the right, a horrible wind call. So I moved 8/10 to the left. And they're like, holy cow. And I'm like, yeah. And then I found it, you know, it's like, I seen it go in the grass. So yeah,
Interesting.
it's just a really big deal.
What ammo does it like?
Lapua long range has been really working well in all of my rifles.
Okay.
I don't know why, and it's running about 1100 feet per second, so it's a little quicker than what I was running with my Center X. Granted, that was out of an 18-inch barrel and a 20-inch barrel, and now I'm running the 24-inch. But it's that Lapua long range has been really good out of any rifle I put it in. It's just working any lot. Like I said, I switched lots because I had two bricks of Lapua long range, and I'm like, okay, well, let's run that. It's been running true and everything else. And then I just stole a profile from another rifle, and it's running really well as long as you got a good speed off of it. And I'm using that Garmin Zero C1, and that's doing great.
Barricade bag preference. What do you use?
That's going to be an Armageddon medium
Yeah.
heavy fill. I use that
Yeah.
sand fill. That's mainly my go-to when I'm talking to newer shooters and customers, and we've talked about it just for fun at matches. If you could only have one bag, what would it be? And everybody, the medium. So even when I'm flying and stuff, if it's tight on weight, then it's you're bringing the medium, you're leaving the pint size back home. But usually when I'm prone, I like the pint size sticky. The reason I go for that is it's just a smaller bag. I get closer to the ground. And then with the sticky part, like today we are not today, yesterday, we had a car that was angled at a car frame that was angled like a race car frame. So it was just a circle and a tube going down at 45, and the medium would just slide down it just the whole time. So you're trying to hold on to it, but you're angled this way. You got to shoot this way. It's angled down. So that sticky, it just sits there. And then I can get on my rifle correctly and not trying to hold it uphill. And yeah, it was a mess for some people. That's for sure. Yeah, I like that sticky.
Do you use a spotting scope or binos?
I use binos. For rimfire, I use the Vortex Fury, the ABs. So it has the range finding and applied ballistics in there. But for centerfire, I'll use the Vortex HDs, the
Okay.
Razor HDs. Really like those. You can see trace going through the air. So those are only 12 power, but I think it's just perfect. You know, I can almost see every round as long as I'm behind that shooter. I can see that trace going all the way to the round using those Razor HDs. just binos, and then the 10 power Furies is all I've been using.
Yeah, righto.
I switch back and forth with those.
What's your greatest 22 shooting achievement to date? Should be an easy one.
Well, I'd have to say the championship. That's a pretty good one. That's I never would have thought, if you would have told me weeks before or a year before, like, hey, you're gonna win it next year. Nah, like there's a lot of good shooters, and we all know it could be anybody's day at any time, and especially with that match being required for the guys going for worlds, and knowing what I know now of those class of shooters. So it's like, no way, I'm going to beat them by 5 impacts too. So that's obviously a big achievement. That's one of the biggest matches with everybody from all over the country, and Australia going there, and South Africa. So it was good seeing everybody there, and then I was able to come out on top on that. So that's a pretty good one.
Greatest piece of advice you'd ever been given, shooting wise?
That I've been given,
Yeah,
easy. Trust your dope.
really.
Yep, that simple. It's trust your dope. I took a class by some guys down south. That was an expensive weekend. I did it by myself, but it was went traveled. I think it was 16 hours by myself. Drove down south, got a hotel, took a 2-day class, and the biggest thing, obviously, how to hold the rifle and gather all this information. Yeah, that's great. But the biggest thing was trust your dope. And what I mean by that, and what they mean by that, is your elevation. You know how some people will spot for you, and oh, it was just high, it was
Yeah,
just low. No, you got to trust your dope. You got to think it's just wind. You got to know that your dope is good. It's your wind. So that's just been the biggest piece of advice. And I take that everywhere, is you got to trust it. And then it's always wind. Like today, or not today, sorry, that is running together. Yesterday, a guy was like, oh, you're just over the plate. No, I was just off the left side. So I give it another half mil of wind, because I make massive corrections in my wind, because I
yeah,
don't want to, oh, just off the edge and you move 2/10. That's not going to get you that impact. Use the whole piece of steel. So I moved a half mil, and oh, feels good when I give you a good call. I'm like, I moved a half mil to the right. I didn't just go over the plate. No, I gave it the same dope and just moved a half mil right. So that's the biggest piece of advice, is trust your dope. You got to do all that homework. You got to do all that beforehand for ELR, for center fire, for rimfire. You just got to trust your dope. You got to do that homework beforehand. You know it's good. It's always wind. It may look weird, but with the hills or whatever, you
yeah.
just got to trust your dope. It's wind. It's always wind.
Otherwise, you're chasing the wrong dope.
Correct. Yep.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
What do you wish you what What do you wish you knew before you started NRL 22?
What I wish I knew before. I don't really know. Before I started NRL22,
What would have helped you when you started? What would be something to
getting the
look for?
right mindset, I guess, with any match, not just NRL22, just the mindset, because it's a big mental game,
Yeah,
because of how much we move and have to shoot off of this barricade, then over here. You got to have that process correct of, you got to visualize that stage beforehand. Before you just look at or for me, I would just look at the course of fire and be like, okay. And then you just kind of go up there and fumble your way through it and have at it. But I wish I would have known earlier, hey, you got to mentally be there and visualize that stage before you go up and shoot it. And then you're going to do so much better, and trust your dope.
yeah, true. What advice would you give to a beginner?
Just get out there and pull the trigger.
Yeah,
We had 3 new shooters out this last weekend, and it was so fun watching them progress, even from stage to stage, of just laying down next to them. And it's like, okay, we're going to get you an impact. We're going to get this together. The MD's not going to say anything to me. Let's get you an impact. It's like, come on. He's had 3 impacts in 5 stages. We're
yeah,
not cheating here. We're just getting some impact. So it's just like, okay, we're going to do this. This is where we're going to move. This is how we're going to place your bag. Things like that. It's just get out there and pull the trigger. Don't be scared of us. Everybody loans out their gear. I have a Voodoo in an ACC Gen 2 That's our loaner rifle with the Razor Gen 2 on it. That's our loaner rifle. Just come out, ask to use it. Here you go. Here's the ammo. Here's the dope. There you go. Just come out and pull the trigger. That's all you got to do. It's
That's,
addicting. I'm going to warn you. Yeah.
that's golden.
Yeah.
So where to from here for you? What's next?
Uh, I need to get to Worlds. That's going to be the next thing. I really want to get to Worlds. This is the best chance. The kids are at the right age. They're not in a bunch of sports or anything like that. Because after this, it's going to get real busy by the time the next 2 years wraps around. Then life's going to get busy with kids and sports and all that. But right now, they're young enough that they're not doing any of that. It's just get them to school.
Yeah.
So really want to make it to Worlds. I'm placed after the match this weekend that a bunch of buddies shot and I didn't. I'm placed 7th, but there's a senior in front of me, so that puts me in the top 6 where I need to be. And then maybe 3 of those guys are sponsored by MPA, so they could run factory, but that's up to them. They get to choose what they run, either open or factory class. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes, but that's what I'm really pushing for. There's 3 matches left, and I'm going to 2 of them, so we'll see how that shakes out. But that's the next goal for sure.
Okay, well, I wish you all the best
Yeah. Thank
in
you.
all your endeavors moving forward.
Yeah.
And thank you so much again for agreeing to do this interview with us.
Oh yeah, no problem. And I hear that you guys might be coming over here there's a new series, or not a new series for me, but for you guys maybe. The PRO, Precision Rifle Outlaws. There was a couple clubs asking about it. It's ran by Shane Scott.
Right.
And that one is more skill based. Like you're going against, you have your pro class, then you have your A master, B master, C master. So those shooters are not all going against me in pro class. Like I had a shooter this last week and we had a pro match, and he was like, yeah, I didn't have to worry about beating you. I just have to beat all the other guys in A class. That's what
Okay.
he's worried about. So it's more skill based. It doesn't matter which equipment you run, how you run it, whatever, because we had a guy in NRL22, he owned 2 Voodoos, but he would show up at the match running an RPR because he wanted to be in factory class because he knew he couldn't compete with us. So he's doesn't even run his Voodoos. Well, now in this new PRO series,
Right.
he can run whatever he wants and he's going to be skilled. It's skill based.
Okay.
So you guys should look into that. I know a couple of your clubs were talking about it. And the
Hmm.
best part is I'm your match director this year. So that'll be a lot of fun. It'll be in South Dakota. It's at a beautiful ranch. It's at a pheasant ranch. We got 4,000 acres to play on for this course of fire. So I'm going to put together a good one. And typically at this championship series of the PRO, you get to walk the prize table twice because there's so many prizes.
Hmm.
It's a really good one. I think the last 3 years you got to walk twice. It's been amazing.
Interesting.
So yeah, you might want to talk to have Shane Scott on and see if you have a couple clubs that would want to do that. I know it's a heck of a commitment for you guys to come over here, but we're trying to schedule it around where the NRL22 championship is because you guys do have guys that come over for that.
Yeah.
So we're trying to schedule it close to that, but not, hit guys 2 weekends in a row
Yeah.
for 2 big matches. So we're trying to figure out dates that work for that, but try to make it like realistic for you guys as well if you're coming over for 10 days or however many.
Yeah. Sounds like a great idea. Just extend your trip a little.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, thank you again, and
Yeah.
all the best moving forward.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And let me know if I can do anything else for you guys.
Thanks, mate.